Okay, so hello and welcome to electronics. So what we want to do basically in this course is basically learn a little bit of electronics. And now the nature of this course is basically something like this. Usually when you learn electronics, when you want to learn electronics, you have to go to school, you have to do your high school and then some university course. Then you will be an electronics engineer, something like that. That's basically that's the normal path to learning electronics and electricity and things like that. But for some reasons, I do want to learn a little bit about the theory of electronics, but of course I don't want to take the other route and basically go to university and take a couple of courses and things like that. I don't want to do that. Because not that there is anything wrong with that path, but that path basically needs you to basically, there is the high school. There is the high school material that you need to know, which is basically some mathematics, and there is some physics in there, and there is some chemistry in there. And when you finish these three in high school, which of course if you want to learn these properly, that might take you quite some time. And then from there you need to go and take, for example, at least even if you don't want to take an actual course in a university, you do need to go and find the typical books that, for example, they cover in an electronics engineering course or something like that. And that would be, for example, a couple of books in electronics, a couple of books in physics, a couple of books in chemistry, some programming and something like that, a couple of projects, and then you will become an electronics engineer. So that you need to take a university course or basically do it yourself. So this would take you at least 4 to 5 years, including basically the material over here. This would take you at least 4 to 5 years to complete this thing. Now this is what I will do basically this is what I'm currently doing on my own. And the videos, for example, related to the mathematics part in high school, for example, I'm already basically uploading to this channel. And if you want to learn basically high school mathematics, you can go and watch these videos if they are any useful for you. So basically I'm doing this, and then of course this will take some time so to complete. For example, the mathematics part of high school, I started from class 6, and then there was class 7, and there was class 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, and this will take at least I would say a year or so, at least 1 year, and you can complete this. Then there is the physics. The physics would take you at least, I would say, the physics and chemistry would take you at least a year or so to complete these two as well. And then of course this takes some time. So this is something that I'm doing, and eventually, hopefully, this will be completed after a few years. Now, what I want to do now, and of course, taking this path, you will have a very thorough understanding of electronics, for example. But what I want to do right now is that I want to get to learn a little bit of the theory of electronics without having a very thorough understanding of the theory of electronics. Just to understand the basic concepts so that I can start, for example, playing with a couple of projects, and then over time I will of course complete this path as well. So now, in order to do that, in order to do the second part, to basically to learn a little bit about the theory of electronics, what I have found the best book to, if you're first of all, about my background, I have been working in basically repair and installation and that sort of thing related to electronics for like 10-15 years. But well, back then I didn't have I didn't really read any theory of electronics. So I know a couple of things in electronics, how to do stuff, but I don't really know much about the theory of electronics, except for the things that I have learned as I was working on different projects, which was not something, they were all practical things, but not theoretical. Now, if you are in the same situation, basically what you can do in order to learn the theory of electronics in a fairly short time, I would say probably in 3 to 4 months. In 3 to 4 months, probably. In 3 to 4 months, what you can do, of course, you do need a fairly good background of mathematics. And what I mean by that is basically the high school mathematics. The high school mathematics up to, for example, class, for example, 10 or 11. More than that, usually you don't need. But of course, it would be helpful it would be much more helpful if you knew, for example, the high school mathematics. Of course, what I mean is knowing well that mathematics of class all the way up to class 12. That's what you need. And then you need a good book to teach yourself electronics. Now, I do a complete research on all of these books that have been written on electronics, and basically there were a couple of books that I could find. The most, in my humble opinion, the best one that I could find, and I did order all of those books, and I went through the books. Basically, I just scanned all of the books basically one by one, and the one which I found really helpful was a book called Complete Electronics Self-Teaching Guide. Complete Electronics Self-Teaching Guide. With projects, and the name of the authors are basically the name of the authors are basically Earl Boysen, and also Harry Kybet. Excuse me. So the name of the authors are these, and the ISBN of this book. The ISBN of this book is basically 978 1 118 21732 21732-0. That is the ISBN of the book. Now, what we will cover in this book is going to be as follows. Get rid of these wires over here. Okay. So first of all, there is a unit over here. There's a chapter which is related to basically DC and DC circuits, which is related to DC circuits. So over here you learn how to calculate. For example, you understand, you read a couple of things about the Ohm's law, and for example the series and parallel circuits. Then you will learn a couple of things about, for example, calculating power. Then you will learn a couple of things about the voltage divider circuit, the current divider circuit, and a couple of things about capacitors. And that's basically what you will learn over here in the DC circuits. There is another part in this book which is about diodes, and you have basically some general material about diodes. For example, the diode breakdown, the Zener diode, and so on and so forth. Then we will learn about a couple of things about transistors, how basically transistors work, how you turn them on and how you turn them off, and that sort of thing. Again, we have another chapter about a little more material about transistors. Then we have some material about AC circuits. So about resistors in AC circuits, about capacitors in AC circuits, about inductors in AC circuits, about resonance, and that sort of thing. Then basically now the rest of the material is going to be mostly about AC circuits. So then we have a chapter about filters, And for example, then this here basically we learn a couple of things about capacitors and about RC circuits, about resistors and capacitors, about inductors, about the phase shift in these circuits, and so on and so forth. Then there is some chapter about resonant circuits, and that's basically about capacitors and inductors in series, and some material about oscillators and things like that. Then we have another chapter about transistors used as amplifiers, and then basically here you learn how to work with transistors, how to bias them, how to basically different basic useful circuits with transistors, using the JFET transistor, and about operational amplifiers or op-amps and things like that. Then we have some chapter about oscillators, which is basically learning a couple of things about oscillators, the feedback circuit, the different kinds of designs of oscillators, and basically oscillator design and that sort of thing. And then we learn a couple of things about transformers, and then we will learn a couple of things about power supplies, and then we will have, that's basically all that we will cover in this book. Now the way that this book works is of course it's been written in a very, very clever way. It's not only just a bunch of basically, it's not just a bunch of, for example, theory in electronics. It gives you some theory, and then basically in the theory part, basically you will learn the theory, and you will do some calculations as well, and of course there is after each small part of theory and calculation, there is a project. That you need to actually do, meaning that building a simple circuit and reading some values. And for this part you need a simple, for example, DC power supply. You need a simple DC power supply. You need a simple oscilloscope. I think oscilloscope is written with two L's, I suppose. You need a simple oscilloscope. You need, for example, a fairly good, basically, you need a basic RMS multimeter. You need a simple RMS multimeter, but basically a good one. For example, this would cost you something about well, I would say $100 or so. about this one, a simple oscilloscope, an analog, for example, about, I don't know, even a 30 megahertz simple analog oscilloscope would be more than enough. You need a DC power supply, for example, a power supply. This is not that important, here, but a simple DC power supply, basically a power supply is required for some of the works, for some of the parts of the work that we do here. You do need a signal generator, a simple signal generator that you can find on probably on eBay secondhand. You could find that, for example, you could buy that for like $40-50 or so. All of these can be secondhand, basically test equipment that you can buy on eBay. So this whole thing is going to cost you, and of course you need basically all the other hand tools and a soldering iron and all of the other things that you need, that you normally need on an electronics bench. But this part over here, this is going to cost you something about, for example, if, I don't know, if you get the second-hand DC power supply, that would cost you like $50. This would cost you around, I don't know, about $50. This would cost you around, for example, about $100 or so, and this is going to cost you about, I don't know, something about $60-70. So this would be about basically the whole thing would cost you about $300. And then you need a soldering iron, and other things like that. For that you could add, for example, like another, for example, at most $200, and then with about $500 you're good to go. Of course, this is provided that you buy everything second-hand from eBay, and that's actually possible. And then you can start doing a couple of experiments in electronics and learn electronics on your own using this course. So that's basically all that you need. Okay. So in the next video, we will start with the first part of this book, which is about DC circuits. We will talk a little bit about, and as I said, basically you don't need to understand that much of mathematics. If you understand mathematics all the way up to, for example, all the way up to trigonometry, it's more than enough, meaning that, let me create a new layer over here. So for mathematics, of course, you need to understand. So for mathematics, you need to understand basically algebra. You need to understand your algebra well, and of course you're going to need some trigonometry. Not a lot of well, you do need your trigonometry, you do need your algebra, and you need to understand basic operations in mathematics: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's more than enough. But of course, these two are important, and all of the prerequisites of trigonometry and algebra are of course included in this part over here. But all the other parts we will learn along the way. So in the next video, I will start with the first video of this course, which is about DC circuits. And so I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.